So have you enjoyed seeing the story of this young lady as she has grown up from being born to now graduating and going off to college over the last month? I know I heard a few sniffles in the room. I'm just going to assume it was allergies, though, right? None of you guys were crying over that girl's story. Man, I do love the picture, though, of the 4 videos that we've watched of her growing up and going through these various phases. If you've ever had kids or been around kids, I'm sure that you were able to relate to some point of those 4 videos. And I'm not to the high school. Well, I got one in high school, but I'm not to that. Some of those phases yet, like prom and graduation and all of that. And we're not going to allow those things anyway. So that's okay. But I love how the end of the story ties into the beginning. And that first video, it ended with her coloring on the wall, and some of you have been in that phase, and to show how when she took that picture off the wall this last time, that first phase was still in the background. And I think that's really what we want to kind of finish up with today, is that understanding that these phases all go together. And so as parents, we need to talk about what matters the most in our kids' lives. And each video ends with this idea of it's a phase, so don't miss it. A lot of times as parents, or whenever somebody is speaking to you as a parent, they'll tell you you're going through a particularly difficult time. Somebody will tell you, hey, look, it's just a phase. They'll grow out of it, right? And you're waiting for this time of diapers to be gone, or this drama of middle school to be gone, or whatever it might be. And what we want to do is just kind of flip that script and say, no, it's a phase. Don't miss it, because each one of these phases have a particular opportunity for us to speak the truth of Jesus into our kids' lives. The reality is that parenting a little human being can be pretty unpredictable. Could you all agree with that? If you've ever parented or grandparented or aunt or uncle or influenced in any way a kid, man, it can be extremely unpredictable. We had one of our kids, I talked to Melody in between services. She said, you told this story wrong. And so I've got the right story. You guys get the right story in the second service. But we were sitting in the living room one time, and we heard this little noise behind us. We realized that one of our 3 boys, I'm not going to say which, one of our 3 boys was using the bathroom in the kitchen trash can. And we hopped up and we're like, what do we do? Do we stop him? Do we carry him to the, what do we do? And we're like, we just let him finish. That's all you can do at that point, right? And then we just sat down and kept watching TV, because he might need to go again later. And so, you don't know what to do in a moment like that. Like, that's not one that you were anticipating, right? There was one time we with our kids that whenever Preston, I will use Preston's name in this story. So Preston was 10 months old. We had just moved into a new house, and I was installing a ceiling fan in the living room. And so I put up the ladder. It was an 8-foot step ladder. Put in the ladder right there, and went out to the garage to get something. I come back in, and Preston's on like step number 5. Okay, I was only out there for like 2 seconds, and he's already scampered halfway up the ladder. And so, being the good dad that I am, I'm like, well, let's just see how far he can get. And so I love him enough that I stood underneath him, or whatever, and kind of put my hand there. And he got up 7 feet. I mean, he did pretty good for his first ladder climb, I would say. But I mean, like, those are things now I realize whenever I'm working on the house, I've got to adjust. I've got to watch the ladder. They come at us with these things that we don't always expect. You've probably been there where you've finally got everybody ready. You're about to walk out the door, and newborn baby spits up on your clothes or leaks out of their diaper, or the toddler comes out and she has redressed herself for you and she hopes that you're so happy with her. We have those moments that we don't anticipate, but they're always coming. And some of those we look back on and we laugh. We laugh about the kitchen trash can or the dirty diapers. We can laugh about those moments usually. But there are some things that come our way that are unexpected, or that maybe we weren't ready for, that we don't look back on and laugh. Maybe we look back on and we say we navigated it, we made it through it, but they're not humorous. That whenever your kid comes to you and they're questioning their identity, and you're having to, okay, now I've got to adjust. I've got to help focus them in on who God made them to be and help them to find their identity in Christ. Whenever maybe they come to you and they're a junior in high school and they tell you that they're pregnant or their girlfriend is pregnant. And you're like, okay, I wasn't anticipating this. Now we have to adjust. Or maybe they come to you and they're telling you that they're having thoughts of suicide. They've been struggling with depression. Okay, I have to adjust. There's these things in life that come our way that we don't anticipate them. And we don't anticipate them. I like the way I want to say it today is we don't anticipate what we don't anticipate, right? In other words, we don't prepare for the things that we're not thinking about. Very few of us go through life thinking, you know what, my kid will probably have a temptation sexually. Or, you know what, there's probably going to come a moment where my child has suicidal thoughts. We don't really prepare for those because we don't want to think them into existence, so we just don't really think about them. What we have to realize is that as parents, our kids are going to face tremendous pressures as they go through life. Anticipating is that looking ahead at what will probably happen or might happen, or there's a chance that it will happen, and getting ready for it. We do this in some areas, especially with the little kids. Like your kindergartner is losing its first tooth. How many of you parents, you don't have to raise your hand, I'm sure we've all been there, but like your kid comes to you and, look, Mommy, I lost a tooth. And your first question to your mind is, how's the Tooth Fairy's bank account doing? I hope the Tooth Fairy doesn't mess up on this one, right? You got to make sure that you've been in communication with that Tooth Fairy to make sure that the bank account is sitting pretty. And so, they've lost that first tooth, or that realization that, your kids are going to come at you at some point and saying, I want a cell phone. My friend has a cell phone. I want a cell phone. How do you handle those situations? The realization that your kids are in a school system, if they're in public school, that is not probably teaching the same things that you're wanting to teach at home. That you're wanting to point them in the way of the Lord, but the school system is teaching them other things. Even if it's a quality education, it's not necessarily teaching what the Bible is you're wanting your kids to understand from the Scripture. And then there's that reality that life is busy. Have you ever noticed that? One of the biggest challenges to anticipating what is coming down the road is the fact that life is busy right now. Life is busy and life is loud. When we talk about life being busy, it's like how many things are you juggling right now? You're being a mom or a dad. You've got a career that you're trying to do well at. You're trying to get your kids dressed and fed and to school every single morning. Maybe you're having to take care of an aging parent, an aging aunt and uncle. Maybe you're navigating a job transition. Maybe you're a single parent. You're having to try to figure out how to be mom and dad at the same time. Maybe you're a parent who's parenting a kid with special needs, and you're having to take care of their particular needs while you still parent your kids who don't have those needs. And so, man, we've got so many things coming at us that sometimes it's hard to anticipate what's coming down the road because you're barely able to make it and navigate what's happening right now. And then there's all the voices that are around us, right? The voices that are telling you how to be a parent, how to be a mom, how to be a dad, telling you how to be a coach if you're helping with your coach's team, or how to be a music instructor if your kid's in band. They're telling you how to be the best employee, and you've got all these voices coming at you, and you're trying to filter through the noise so that you can pick out the few things that you really need to hear. And then you look on Facebook, and you know what you see? You see your friend who is like the perfect mom. You see your friend who's the perfect dad. You see your friend's kids who like never do anything wrong. I want to just tell you something real quick, parents, okay? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Is there anything else that I missed in there? I don't know. All those are lies, okay? All right, everybody take a deep breath. And say, it's a lie. Yeah, it's a lie, okay? Listen, whenever your friend mom posts a picture of her perfectly clean kitchen, and she's like, I just love a clean kitchen. I promise you, that's the first time that kitchen has been clean in 3 months, okay? And she's just taking a picture of it so that she can go back to it later on whenever there's spaghetti hanging out over the kitchen sink, and she can kind of just take a breath herself, all right? Or like the kids who, she's taking a picture of her kid with their test that they took and they got 100 on it. That's the first non-C that kid has had in 3-6 weeks, okay? Don't compare yourself to what you see on social media. Don't let that voice get into your head and say you don't measure up. Okay, because God has called you to be a parent of your own children. God has called you to parent in your own mess. And I promise you, your friend has as big a mess as you have. Our messes just look different. And so we need to be able to live in the loudness, live in the busyness of what we have going on, and realize that there still are things down the road that we need to anticipate. Let me give you just a few statistics, not to scare you, but just to let you know about some of the reality that our kids face. 38%, this one actually blew my mind. 38% of middle school boys report using protein supplements. I didn't know what a protein supplement was until I got to college. And I was like, what's this weird milkshake that my friend is drinking? You know, it tastes terrible. I need to take him down to Brahms and get him a real milkshake, right? And so 38% of middle school boys use protein supplements. 17% of high schoolers drink, smoke, or use some drugs during the school day. I'm not talking about like at home or on the weekends. During the school day, 17%. 14 years old is the average age when a kid begins cutting or self-harm, if they struggle with that. That is about the average when they begin struggling with that. 11 years old is the average age when a kid is first exposed to pornography. 61% of 18-year-olds report being sexually active in some way. And 43% of children have used social media to message a stranger. And that just blows my mind as well. 43% of children have used social media to message a stranger. You know, whenever we think about anticipating those phases that are coming down the road, we can sometimes live in fear. But I want us to talk about today how anticipating those things, having a good view of what is coming down the road, can help us have the correct conversations. So here's kind of our main point for this morning. Let me back up and read Proverbs 22:6, because that's where it comes from. Start a youth out on his way, and even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. So Proverbs 22:6, start a youth on his way, and even when he grows old, he will not depart from it. Now, I want to remind us that this is a proverb. It's a wise saying. In the book of Proverbs, there's a mixture of things that are absolute truths, and then right next to it might be something that is a wise saying, a good principle to live by. And this is one of those. This is one of those that it's not a promise in the sense that if you raise your kids in church, they will never leave the church. Some of you in this room probably raised your kids in godly homes. You had evening devotions with your family, with your family, your kids. They were in church very often. They were very active in church. And then when they got to college or later on in life, something happened, and a switch flipped, and they went their own direction. That doesn't necessarily mean that you, as a parent, failed in some way, because we're going to talk about this later. There are no perfect parents, and that should give us all a little breath, a sigh of relief. When it comes down to it, kids have to make their own decisions. Young adults have to make their own decisions. You teach them up in the way of the Lord, and the hope is that even if they walk away from their faith for a while, that truth of the gospel will bring them back to reality of following Jesus. And that happens in many young people's lives. And so, parent, if you've got a kid in college, maybe in young adulthood, 20s, 30s, even 40s or older, and your kids have walked away from their faith, please don't quit praying for those children. Pray for them and pray that God would do what, listen, and this is a scary prayer to ask, but I want to encourage you to pray it. pray that God will do whatever he has to do in their life to bring them back to Jesus. If he has to implode their job, do it. It's more important to come back to Jesus than have a good job. If he has to send strife into their marriage to make them fall on their knees and come to Jesus, then let's do it. Whatever it takes to bring your children back to Jesus, pray for that, because we want them to come back to Jesus. And so here's our main point for the day. When your child's ultimate destination is clear, it helps you focus correctly, prioritize well, and maintain perspective. And so when your child's ultimate destination, that ultimate future destination of the fact that one of these days they're going to take their last breath on earth and take their first breath in eternity, that ultimate destination, when that is clear in our minds, it helps us focus correctly, prioritize well, and maintain perspective. That's the ultimate destination that I want us to have in mind this morning, because it doesn't matter what your kids are involved in, how great they are at whatever they're doing. There's going to come a time when that's over. But there's also going to come a time when this life is over. I've read statistics that in high school sports, because a lot of times we push our kids in sports. In high school sports, 7% of high school athletes will play on the collegiate level of any size, Division 1, 2, 3. So only 7%, okay? Only 1.8% of high school athletes will play on the Division I college level. Only less than 2% of your high school athletes will play in Division I. And if they are exceptional, I mean like exceptional, 0.00075% of them will go pro. Yet how many of our parents push their kids in sports and they just chunk church, chunk relationship with Christ, hold that off to the side because they prioritize sports? Or it could be band, it could be cheerleading, it could be dance, it could be music, it could be any number of things that we prioritize above our relationship with Jesus. When the percentages of those things actually being meaningful in their life long term are so small, but the chance that your child meets Jesus one day, 100%. 100% of your children will die at some point. Hopefully whenever they're older, they will take their last breath here and they will enter into an eternity. And the question is, are they going to enter into eternity with Jesus, or are they going to pass Jesus by on their way to an eternity separated from him forever? And so our eternal destination is what is important. So let's talk about this a little bit. How do we focus in on this? Well, what are some things that kind of get in the way? Well, without a clear destination in mind, you tend to only focus on the right now. If we are not looking at what is coming down the road, if we don't have that ultimate destination in mind, then we're just reacting to what is happening right now. So Melody and I spent the last week in Italy. It was kind of an anniversary trip for us. We spent the last week in Italy, very dangerous, Italy with a rental car, okay? And I use the term car loosely. Around here, we would probably call it a Power Wheel. But over there, they call it a car. It would fit in the most of the back of your 250. It would fit right there, not snug. You'd probably still have room for, a bicycle or something. It was a tiny car is the point. And it was scary driving on some of those roads, especially because I don't know what the deal is, but over there, all the road signs are in Italian, okay? They haven't written them in English, and they don't even put words on their signs. Like their stop signs, it's just a stop. Like you have to figure out, you have to look online to figure out what all these signs mean so that you know how to drive in Italy, okay? And so it was scary, but one thing that was nice is that I could put in a destination in my phone. I could set my phone up there, and my phone would tell me, when you come to the 432nd roundabout that you're going to come to today, take the second exit, okay? And I don't know how many times I've heard, when you come to the roundabout, take the second exit. That just means go straight in Italian. And so that final destination in mind helped me, but because it told me what turn to make at an intersection, and then whenever I took the wrong turn, you know what it did? It recalculated, and it got me back on track so that I could get to where I need to go. See, having that final destination in mind helped me focus. I wasn't just reacting to every roundabout that I came to, wondering which road in Italian I'm supposed to go on. It was able to help me find my direction. And so as parents, if we have that final destination in mind, then we don't just react to what is happening in the moment. We are able to plan our kids' lives out in such a way that we're helping them have that final destination in mind. When in the book of Hebrews, it reminds us that this life is not our home. It says Hebrews 13:14, for it says, "For we do not have an enduring city here. Instead, we seek the one to come." I wonder if that's true of your life today and of your kids' lives, your children's lives today. Are you really focusing in on the city that's here, or are you looking forward to the city that is to come? Because all of us are going to wind up either in that city, or we're going to bypass it on our way to hell, and that is a reality. And so this morning, I just want to encourage you, have that ultimate destination in mind. The most important thing that you can do for your child is lead them to have faith in Jesus Christ, and then lead them to become a disciple of Jesus. It's more important than a quality education. It's more important than friends and social acceptance. It's more important than getting into the best college. It's more important than being on the best sports team. Prepare your kids for eternity, because I promise you, every one of your kids has eternity ahead of them. So this first thing that we need to do is to focus on what's ahead rather than just focusing on right now. The second thing, without a clear destination, you tend to do whatever makes them happy. You tend to do whatever makes your kid happy. You know, there was a time in American culture where kids were meant to be seen, not heard. Okay, some of y'all may remember that time. Some of you grew up in that time. I don't think that in my generation that was really the case. I think kids were still kind of beginning to take the center stage. Nowadays, it's like the kid is the hub and everything spins around the kids in the family. And we're going 90-0 because of the children in our life. I think there's a balance between kids are meant to be seen, not heard, and kids are the center of our world that we need to land on. And we don't need to just do whatever makes our kid happy. Listen, my kids had more toys by the time they were 3 years old than I had my entire life. Okay? And I'm not saying that out of bitterness, although I would have loved to have some of those Legos too when I was a kid. I'm not saying that out of bitterness or jealousy. I'm just saying the reality is, like, our kids have so much stuff. They've got more entertainment in the palm of their hands than I saw my entire first 18 years. Kids are spoiled when it comes right down to it in a lot of generations. And mom and dad, listen, I want you to hear this clearly. It's not your responsibility to make your kids' life nice and easy and pain-free. If you want to do something good for your kids, let them experience the reality of the pain of life. Let them navigate the struggles that you're going through. Let them see you navigate them with the grace of Jesus in your life. Let them see you go through the experience of trusting Jesus to pay the next bill. Sit down with them, and as you're praying about a health concern, gather them together and let them see you pray and lean into Jesus as you trust them with this health concern, or a situation with a family, or needing to depend on Him for the next bill. Don't put in them the fear of not knowing what's coming. Put in them the trust of knowing that Jesus is going to provide. We need to lean into not doing whatever makes them happy, but teaching them to love Jesus and to trust in Him. In 1 John 2, it says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him." Listen to this, verse 16. "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride in one's possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world with its lust is passing away, but the one who does the will of God remains forever." You know, Peter tells us that it's the will of God that all will come to salvation and that none would perish and that all would come to salvation. That is why He's being patient, is what Peter says. That's why the world is still turning, because His desire is that as many people as possible would come to faith in Jesus. And maybe that's you this morning. Maybe you've never come to a point where you have given your life over to Jesus. I want to encourage you to make that decision today, because I promise you that life that we talked about, we want everybody in our city to experience new life in Jesus. That is the only life that is truly worth living, because that is the only life that starts now and that lasts for all eternity. And so if you've never given your life to Jesus, I would love to tell you about how you can receive forgiveness, how you can receive mercy, how you can receive the grace of Jesus in your life, where He cleanses you from sin. He wipes away the guilt of your sin, and He gives you a relationship with God, your Heavenly Father. And so if you've never come to that point, come see me at the end of the service, and I would love to talk with you about that. And so having that right destination in mind, having that destination of an eternity rather than the right now, helps us to get past the just trying to make our kids happy. Now listen, parent, you're telling me, but you don't know my kids. Listen, I have your kids too, okay? I've got 4 kids, and my kids aren't perfect. We tell them that they're perfect all the time. They know we're joking. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, I've got kids too. I've been in the car where you've got one kid screaming, one kid with a dirty diaper and one kid complaining because it stinks and it's loud. Like, I've been there, okay? And you've been there too. I've been chunking goldfish in the back seat saying, dear Lord, please shut them up. Okay, we had one kid, at one point we lived 50 minutes away, or 55 or something like that, minutes away from Melody's house, her parents' house to our house. And we had one kid cried the entire 55 minutes, okay? And then we get out of the car all frazzled. They get out of the car and stop crying and like, Grandma, Grandpa. I mean, it's like, and like, what wonderful children you have. No, yeah, okay? And so, listen, we've been there. There are times when you appease the kids, okay? But don't make that the process. Don't make that the daily experience. Make the daily experience pointing them, encouraging them towards that final destination, not just seeking to make them happy. Third thing, finally, a third reason for us to focus on the destination. Without a clear destination, you tend to fear what you can't control. You let fear creep in. You begin to fear what you can't control. Listen, you're not alone in laying awake at night saying, did I handle that situation correctly? Did I discipline my kid correctly? Should I have handled this situation better? Am I messing up my kids? Or am I ruining my kids? Or are my kids going to be functional adults? Listen, all of us, probably from every generation in this room who have had kids or have been an influencer in some way, probably every one of us in this room could say, I've been there, where I've laid awake at night and said, did I handle that situation, or could I have handled that situation better? Listen, I want you to hear this. You are not a perfect parent, and that's okay, okay? And I'm not a perfect parent, and that's okay. In fact, will all the perfect parents in the room raise your hand? You better not raise your hand, okay? All right. Only non-parents, I think, raise their hands. There are no perfect parents in this room. And listen, there are no perfect grandparents. There are no perfect influencers in a kid's life. All of us are going to make a mistake at some time. And the fact that we think we can control everything just is a window into the reality that we don't have a grip on reality. We cannot control everything in our kids' lives. So what we need to do is to hand that control over to the one who does have control. Listen, you're not a perfect parent, not a perfect grandparent, not a perfect aunt or uncle, not a perfect influencer, but there is one person in your kid's life who is perfect, and that is God, the Heavenly Father. And so lean in to Him. Trust in what He says to Isaiah, the Israelites in Isaiah 41. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand. He tells the same thing to us this morning. Listen, we do our best to raise our kids with the grace of Jesus in our life and the grace of Jesus in their life. We do our best to teach them the truth of the Word of God and to teach them the truth of the world that they live in. We try to do our best to discipline them, but we need to remember that when it comes right down to it, the life that they live ultimately is a decision between them and Jesus Christ. And the grace that we've experienced as a believer in Jesus Christ is the same grace that they have to experience. The decisions that we have made to follow Jesus is the same decision that they're going to have to make to follow Jesus. The decision that we've made to be a disciple is the same decision that they're going to have to make to be a disciple. But one thing we have to remember is that we can't lead our kids anywhere that we haven't already been. And so if you are not a believer in Jesus Christ this morning, that is the first decision that you need to make. To be a believer, a follower of Jesus, so that you can point the direction, so that you can lead in the right direction and help them discover what it means to have new life in Jesus. I'm going to invite our praise team to come up. And as they do, I just want to share this last verse kind of to wrap up this entire family series we've been doing through the month of October. Psalm 127, 3-5, one of my favorite passages about parenting. It says sons, when it's talking about sons, it's just talking about children in general. Sons are indeed a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the sons born in one's youth. Happy is the man who has filled his quiver with them. They will never be put to shame when they speak with their enemies at the gate. What I love about this passage of Scripture is the imagery of a warrior and his arrows. See, we lose this a lot of times because if we need an arrow or, a shotgun shell or a bullet or something like that, we just go to Academy Sports and we buy them off the shelf. Somebody's already done the work of making them. We just take them home and, go fire them off. For a warrior in that day and time, they had to go out to the tree. They had to find a straight stick. They had to craft it. They had to shave it down. They had to sharpen the point, put on the tip of it. They had to fit the arrows fit the feathers to the end to make the back. They had to notch it. They had to build the bow. They had to do all the things to prepare that arrow to be shot out. And then they put it in their quiver, but that wasn't the end of the story. They would spend time, they would practice because they wanted to practice being a good shot. Because they knew there was going to come a day where they had to take that arrow out. They had a target that they were trying to hit. They had to pull it back, and they had to let that arrow fly. And the hope is that the arrow was true, the arrow was straight, that their practice had prepared them to launch that arrow out, and so that whenever they took that arrow and shot it out into the world, it would hit its target. Listen, parents, these kids that we have in our hands, these are arrows. And the hope is that as we spend time with them, as we mold them, as we shape them, that we're shaping them to where they can fly true and straight whenever they're launched into the world. Because there's going to come a time as a parent where, whether you want to or not, the circumstances of age, the circumstances of development, the circumstances of just life getting older, you're going to have to take that arrow out of your quiver, notch it to your bow, pull it back, and let it fly. And the hope is that whenever you do so, it hits its target. And that child becomes a young lady. That child becomes a young man. And not just a young lady who have good morals, and not just a young man with good character, but a young lady or a young man who is in love with Jesus. That's the prayer that I have for my kids. That's the prayer I have for your kids. And I hope that's the prayer that you have for your kids as well. This morning, if you've never given your life to Jesus, like I said, you can't direct your kids where you have not already gone. And so like knowing the end destination, if you've never been there and visited there yourself, then I want to encourage you this morning to give your life to Jesus, to surrender your life over to Jesus so that you can then say, hey kids, I know the destination. Let me lead you to where you want to go. If you're a kid in here this morning and you've never given your life to Jesus, maybe your parents aren't believers, but you say, I want to have a relationship with Jesus because I want to be somebody who's following after Jesus, and I'm going to have kids eventually. I want to lead them to look like Jesus. Listen, if you're a child, a teenager in here, a young adult, and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, I want to talk with you about that as well. For the rest of us, I know that we know people who are struggling as parents, who are having difficulties with their children, whether young or old. I would encourage you as we have this song of invitation time. I know we're going long today. I just want to encourage you to pray for them. Lift them up. Encourage them through your prayers. Encourage them to pursue Jesus. And so would you just lift up a parent this morning? Maybe you need to lift yourself up. Just lift them up to the Lord today.